The White House has officially unveiled today its plan to curb NSA surveillance, trying to resolve the heated national debate over security versus privacy, a debate really sparked by Edward Snowden. How is Congress going to respond? Joining me now, a key player, Vice Chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Dutch Ruppersberger of Maryland. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. I know that you and your colleague, Mike Rogers, have come up with a plan, a bipartisan plan, and it seems as though it is going to at least move forward in the House, but it isn't the same as the President's plan. The President would have a FISA court before every entry on suspicion of a terror threat, going in and looking at the content of a telephone call. The President would have a court, a judge, actually approve that. You would not. Why not?
Well, no, that's not the case. First thing, let's just say this. The Chairman, Rogers, and I have been negotiating for 9 months to come together to have a bipartisan bill. We have also been working closely with the White House, and we're very, very close to the White House. The difference between the White House's proposal and our proposal is that we both have the courts looking at what we call the information that's going to be used to give us the ability to get the telephone data that we need to protect us from terrorist attacks. The White House would have the court prejudge the issue, and we would have the court oversee the procedures. We both are in a position that after we get the metadata numbers, no content at all, and give you an example, if a terrorist from Yemen in Yemen is calling the United States, we want to find out who he's calling and whether there's a conspiracy there. And so we clearly have the court reviewing that after the fact. Before the fact, we're a little bit different, but we're still looking at it. We're still negotiating.
That's my point. I mean, that is a clear difference. The President's plan would do it before the fact. You would do it after the fact. You would argue that you can't wait, that the intelligence community needs to move more quickly than to wait for a FISA judge.
Well, that's exactly the point. Our point is that we want to give flexibility. If there's an attack that is coming, we want to be able to jump on it right away. We have to learn from 9/11. You know, if we would have had this metadata program, this bulk collection before 9/11, there's a good chance we could have stopped the attack. And the reason is because we didn't know the terrorist was in San Diego coordinating the attack. But yet, because of all the information out there, the public had a concern that the NSA was violating privacy. So that was not the case. There was no indication at all. In fact, I represent NSA. These are good people that go to work every day and care about protecting the people. But notwithstanding that, we've listened and we've changed the concept so the government will no longer hold the bulk data. So there's one small issue left, and that is the issue of whether we give more flexibility before the court gets involved versus after they get involved. And by the way, we're still working with the White House. We need to resolve this. We need to get this bill passed in the House, in the Senate, and have the President sign it so we can protect Americans and yet maintain the privacy that we care so much about in this country.
Now, I presume that you agree with the President's decision that for the next 90 days, the FISA judge should renew the program until something can be resolved in Congress.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, you know how Congress is. And, you know, the good news is that Rogers and I are very bipartisan, and we put other bills on the floor that we've been able to pass, which is rare in this town right now. The stakes are too high for intelligence. We have to protect ourselves from attacks, and yet we don't want any anxiety or anyone in this country to feel that their privacy rights are being violated. So we're going to be, yes.
Sorry, I was going to just quickly ask you, what about the 702 program, the PRISM program that involves emails? That is not part of, that's a separate program, but this is not part of the so-called reform that the President has proposed today. Should there be some limits placed on that as well?
Well, how I'm going to answer that, the most important issue we're dealing with today is the issue of the United States of America and our citizens' rights and to protect our country. That's the highest priority. Okay, the other issue has to do with the ability to gain intelligence information on an international level, whether it's China, Russia, terrorists, whatever. So that's not on the table now, and we're focused right now on changing the bulk collection. That's a big deal to remove bulk collection. The phone companies who have all the information now, we will basically the FBI will go with an administrative warrant, say, give me this number, we're concerned about a terrorist calling from Yemen, and then right after that, the courts will then make a decision on whether or not they pass a test called reasonable articulable suspicion. That's where we are with respect to this 215 and the bills that we'll have on the floor, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks or month.
And as I understand it, the telephone companies will only hold these records for 18 months, but that the intelligence communities now acknowledge that 18 months is long enough. That's the same amount of time that they're now holding the material, and the government will not be storing bulk data for 5 years. What about the Senate? I know you and the White House are working together, so you've got bipartisan support in the House, and you think you're going to reach agreement with the White House. What about the Senate?
Senator Feinstein, Senator Chambliss, and Chairman Rogers and myself work very closely together. In fact, we just had a meeting 2 days ago on this whole issue about where the Senate is going to be. Right now, the Senate will wait until we do what we have to do in the House. But, you know, we all care about the same thing, providing privacy and yet maintaining the ability to protect our citizens from terrorist attack. And that's the whole focus of where we are. And we feel good about coming together in a bipartisan way. Again, it usually doesn't happen a lot in this town, but we hope it'll happen now because the stakes are just so high.
Congressman Ruppersberger, thank you very much for being with us today. Appreciate it.